Hey everybody, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing another video today. I'm probably going to be doing quite a bit more. It looks like there's been a change in my viewership and subscriber count over the last several weeks. So I guess I've got to hustle for the bustle, or bustle for the hustle, whatever you want to call it. So this one's a kind of about just something I just started thinking about Dave Chapelle and the whole controversy with him right now. I used to watch Dave Chapelle, and my old roommates. He used to watch that all the time. I liked a lot of it. I still do. I still think there's a lot of it that's really relevant for today, like the affirmative consent joke and just all this. Just a lot of the stuff's hilarious, Well, there was a bit where he has like a waivers and he's trying to have sex. I just remember that. That was really funny. He actually did some of this stuff, like all these things that you like think about, like even like 5 years ago, like people talked about a lot of this feminist stuff, and Dave Chapelle was doing jokes about that years ago, and stuff like that. He's ahead of the curve in many ways. So there's a controversy about the comments about trans people and stuff. Well, what we have right now in our country is this agenda. I don't mean the LGBT agenda or anything like that, so I'm not some Christian maniac fucking, saying some crazy shit on this. We have this corporate culture, globalization, globalists, whatever you want to call it, that are in league with the woke crowd. Because the woke crowd is not talking a lot about certain things. You notice nowadays, if you look at the left, they're not talking about at least like a quarter to half of the stuff they used to talk about. They used to be against big pharma. They used to be against globalization. They used to be against free trade, corporations, big tech, all this stuff. And a lot of them increasingly are just like tying these they're tying these things. I was just looking at a text. They're tying these things together, and it's like you have this woke crowd, but then they ignore all the other stuff that the left used to talk about. It's like in my previous video, I was like, well, if these people that are pro mandates are also against the corporations having the patent power and not doing patent waivers, then I'll give them more respect, right? But if they're supporting mandates and then don't support that, just support big pharma having control over this shit while the rest of the world doesn't get the jabba dabba do, or it's slower because of all this bullshit, then, that's kind of where I'm at. So when Dave Chappelle's attacked for this joke, he's basically pointing out that a lot of the black community is getting ignored while these other people are getting, traditionally oppressed minorities are getting boosted. He's not, and maybe he is transphobic or whatever. Like I could probably be called that if I admitted in this video that I'm not, I'm attracted to cis women. There's nothing that's going to change that for me, for various reasons. I'm never gonna be attracted to men. I'm never gonna be attracted to trans women, and there's other things too. There's other things I will never be attracted to. I'll never be attracted to certain types of women, or I have preferences. For Christ's sake, is that a evil thing nowadays? So I could be called that too. I'm not going to make jokes about the people in that movement, because I just don't find them funny. But I just find this whole thing just to be totally. I think he's pointing. I mean, what I'm trying to say is it's just totally out of it's just totally out of bounds. The people that are attacking him, and the thing about it is that they should go ahead, because the more that people try to cancel each other out, and the more these people, it's just like with Trump. The more that people, at least originally the last election, the previous election in 2020. Previous presidential election, the more they attacked him, the more people supported him. It's true. The more that people could try to cancel Dave Chapelle or Joe Rogan or Russell Brand, the more that people are going to dig in, on the other side, or, stand their ground on the other side and just be like, fuck you, we can't take this anymore. So I think that Dave Chapelle is pointing out the hypocrisy of a lot of the left nowadays. And I'm bringing this in because I think there is an agenda from corporations and neoliberals to tie their, wokeism in there to try to ignore class stuff, ignore other, other economic disparities, ignore basically like a lot of nuance when it comes to that. They're trying to, we got this thing that we could distract people with, this these racial things and these gender and sexual orientation things. We could distract people while we're plundering the wealth for ourselves. That's what it's all about. So Dave Chapelle, I'll give him credit for going out there and, this his whole I had a trans friend thing. Okay, that's pretty foolish. I'll agree. That's one point that I saw on Twitter today that I was like, yeah, that does sound like that I have a black friend thing from back in the day. I'll give it to them. I'll give them 1 point, the other side, about that. But this whole thing, just attacking and canceling people, it's just like, he comes out and says, I don't think we should cancel people. So people try to cancel him. Like, well, of course. I mean, I haven't watched the special yet. I probably will. But it's like, it's all about basically predicting what was going to happen because of the special that actually happened. Like George Takei came out. That guy's a fucking schmuck, man. I mean, I used to really like George Takei before 2016, but then he became a divisive loser on Facebook and Twitter. He used to be really funny. I was with him on most political issues, obviously, before 2016. But when he got Trump derangement syndrome, frankly, like everything was about Trump, nothing else. If George Bush wiped his ass and threw it on a dead Iraqi child or something, and threw the toilet paper, and then said, I did it because I hate Trump, George Takei would probably like that, right? That's what I'm talking about. And then there's this Me Too stuff about him too. So yeah, I support Dave Chapelle. Just pissing off, started the rancor of the woke corporate. I'll just call them woke corporatists, because I don't think, and I think a lot of these people obviously are on the left. Some of them are, some of them are reasonable people that are against big corporations and either probably hate, they hate, maybe some of them hate censorship too. Well, actually, no. Most people that are defending Dave Chapelle, see, isn't that funny? We have a culture in society for decades, since the 50s, for about 60 years, it was the right wing trying to suppress freedom of speech. It was the right wing calling people, clumping people all together and all this stuff. But then around 2010, 2011, 2012, the left, started to become the censorious, authoritarian fuckwits. And that includes with, other things that I talk about on this channel too, of course. But that's what happened. We had a party switch, we could say it's kind of like the Southern switch, it's like, I don't know what's going on, but the liberals of today, I do not recognize. I mean, yes, they were always against homophobia, racism, transphobia, or whatever. But the way that they are doing it now, the way that they're going at that, is very problematic and troubling to me, and authoritarian. It's not, and there were far left people, these politically correct people I learned about I had a middle school teacher, because I went to this private school for 1 year. And he's like, and he used to teach about political correctness and stuff. And I think he was serious about it. But years later, I was at my friend's graduation party, and he was there, college graduation party. He's like, I think I did talk about it. Well, I was making fun of it. He was in total denial that he was actually into this shit. But as you get older, just like, who knows? It's like, it was just so funny. But I love the guy, by the way. He was a great teacher. I'm not bashing him in any way, but he was in denial about supposedly being more of a SJW back then, which he basically was, I just remember. But it was cool, it's cool, like, people grow and people change. But yeah, I think Dave Chapelle should be defended. I think Netflix actually did the right thing, because it's like they're so rich, they're playing both sides now. Like, they'll have an Obama documentary or whatever, and and then they'll do some of the Dave Chappelle. But Dave Chappelle is pointing out that the black community overall is getting left out of a lot of these conversations. They're getting shut out because, other than like Black Lives Matter, okay, they're getting shut out in this way that's very suspicious. It's like these hoity-toity, white, well-to-do liberals that are trying to monitor speech about gender and all this stuff. And yeah, well, I was born from a woman, you know. Gender is not just an illusion, and neither is sex. And okay, there's a difference between sex and gender. Let's get that straight. But it's just so, it's gotten, the dialogue has gotten so damn stupid. You have all these 50 different genders from Tumblr back in the day or whatever. It's like, what, you can't even get it straight. Is it a social construct or is it not? If it's a social construct, if it's just a social construct, what's wrong with people misgendering and all that stuff? It's just made up. When I hear social construct, I think, oh, it's made up anyways. Who gives a fuck? You know, who cares? But yeah, I think it's stupid. All these debates, you know, over Dave Chappelle. You know, it's just the culture war. But a lot on the left are not going to stand. A lot of the people that I consider the real left, or the leftover left from the early 2000s, late 90s, which I count myself part of that left. I count myself it's almost like an old versus new left at this point, because it's like the old left, almost like the pre-Trump left in a way, was all about freedom of speech, against warmongering, against corporate fuckery, you know, all that stuff. And now it's like, you know, you'll have someone who cares more about being woke than the latte that they bought from some non-fair trade coffee place that is probably enslaving someone worse than misgendering. It's someone working a job that they want to kill themselves, you know, in some, you know, third world country, mining coffee beans or something. Let's just say this is white, well-to-do, blue-haired, fat chick, you know, that is going to scream at you like a harpy about misgendering her, is going to care more about that than some third world, you know, person mining the minerals for their laptop or whatever. Fuck you. You know, that's what the left cared about in the 90s. I'll just be honest. Like, there was the school I went to this ultra politically correct school, another school for high school for 2 years. And we were taught about how America's evil and all this stuff. It's kind of funny. But there was like this Burma boycott, and people were talking about that. And that was the Pepsi, it was a Pepsi boycott because they were doing bad stuff in Burma. But the left used to care more about that shit. They used to care way more about that stuff. And I don't hear about it anymore. I don't hear about that kind of stuff as much. I hear about Dave Chappelle or someone being attacked over not wearing a mask or some shit. I don't hear about the third world people, you know, being oppressed by a corporation that the government supports and there's a boycott or something. I don't hear that. I don't hear about that as much. I still hear about it from time to time, but I don't hear about it as much. What happened? What happened to that left? I'll leave you with that, and let's go, Brandon, and support Dave Chappelle. And I think, you know, okay, I'm not going to finish this video yet, but, you know, I think there are maybe some comments that he makes that are a little bit questionable about trans people. I'll give it that. But who the fuck are you to call for a boycott of Netflix and all this shit? You know, it's like the right wanted to boycott Netflix for cuties, and now the left wants to boycott Netflix for this Dave Chappelle special. The Netflix can't win, but they're doing the divide and conquer game at the same time, which is it's almost like so blatantly obvious and transparent. I almost like have to give them kudos for doing that so much out in the open. It's kind of hilarious. But yeah, I should check out more. I'm trying to check out more comedy, because I do have, you know, I'm going to be doing open mic eventually again. So, but yeah, and I do like some of Dave Chappelle's bits. But, you know, it's like, obviously, people don't understand the trans thing too, and I think he maybe doesn't understand it completely, and a lot of people don't, and it's hard to understand. There's a lot of complexities and nuance there, in the whole thing. It's very hard to understand. I probably don't understand it completely myself by my own admission. I'll swipe a bunch of girls on Tinder and be like, I'll just be honest. I'm just being completely honest. I don't completely understand it or get it completely either. I understand, I understand the basic premise, but I'm just not, I just don't, but I don't really care about it that much. That's the thing. It's like, it's not something I think about all the time. Like, oh my God, why are people, why is this happening? It's just like, who cares? People could do what they want to do. It's like, it doesn't matter. I don't get why a guy would be attracted to another guy completely either. But even though, like, I actually probably understand that a little more than the trans thing, actually more. Yeah, way more, actually. Not way more. No, don't get me wrong, not that much, but no man, no homo man. No, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just making fun of that whole thing from the 90s. But YouTube, I was just making fun of that. Okay. So yeah, I don't like this culture war. We need to have open and honest conversations. I hope Twitter goes down for a year, and Facebook and all these social media platforms, and we can have face-to-face conversations and debates. What happened to people like William F. Buckley? Even though he was a right-wing douchebag in so many ways, but later on he kind of became a little bit more, dare I say, progressive. Like, he was pro pot legalization and stuff, and way better person, but later on in life. But I don't remember if I think he was still pro Iraq war, but I can't really remember exactly what happened with him. But he used to have people on his show, like, they would have open discussions, open conversations. Crossfire, which is lame. Crossfire was always lame. Read Matt Taibbi, Hate Incorporated. He talks about Crossfire's supposed left versus right debate. But William F. Buckley was a real thing. He had Noam Chomsky on there. He had all these, I think he had Black Panthers on there and all these people. So it's kind of funny, but it's something we gotta just do and get past all this rancor and this discontent as far as debating people in real life, in real kind of balanced ways and means of doing it, because it's just going so badly. And Twitter is just shit. It's a cesspool of hatred. So I like what Dave Chapelle did have to say about Twitter. I did see that, he says this is not fucking real life or something like that. It's like, it's fake, but people take it so seriously. It can influence elections. It can influence people's behaviors. A stupid platform, which actually does have some open debate, does have some open discussion. It is better than Facebook as far as censorship too. It still is. I know there's people like Alex Berenson that would say, oh, I was banned from Twitter. Oh, yeah, there is a lot of censorship on Twitter, and it sucks, and I do not like it. I think it should be pushed against. But at the same time, I have seen some decent debates on there that are better than Facebook debates. Because Facebook, you'll have that fact check right away. If you're really careful with the system on Twitter, you can get away with a lot more than you can on Facebook, or even YouTube for that matter. So I still think it's a decent platform, but I don't like the way that these debates have gone. There are some intellectual deep debates and deep dives on Twitter, but it needs to be deeper and more, in real life, or at least on Zoom, because you're scared to leave your house, I guess, until 2030. Or your 5 math. Anyways, that's about all.